Today, we are going to be talking about how to write the perfect pin description on Pinterest. I'm Emily Vales. I'm a Pinterest marketing and ad strategist. And for the past 4 years, I've helped my clients and my students increase their traffic and turn it into profit through the power of Pinterest marketing. So I am so excited because today is the first day that we'll be launching into a 3-part series. Now, during this 3-part series, I am going to be covering what exactly you need to be including within your pins so that we can get them to go viral on Pinterest. So before we dive into what you need to be including in that Pinterest pin description, I want to talk about why keywords are so important on Pinterest and why there needs to be multiple episodes dedicated to keyword optimizing your Pinterest pins. So in case you didn't know, Pinterest is a visual search engine. So I always say to my students, to my clients, anybody who's listening to me out there on the internet, that keywords are king on Pinterest. When people come to the platform, the first action they are taking, they are going up to the search bar, and what they are doing is they are searching for answers to their problems. They are looking for ideas, inspiration. They're planning for the future. And in order to get those solutions to their problem, they're entering in keywords. Now, what Pinterest does, they take information from content creators or business owners sharing information on Pinterest, and they're looking at their boards, their profiles, their pins, what keywords that business owner is using, and that's really what's helping Pinterest index their content. And then once Pinterest indexes content, then they know who to show that content to based off of the pinners' searches. So if you're not optimizing your content well for the search engine, then you're honestly not going to see the best results from Pinterest, because you could have amazing content, but if people can't locate your content and it's not servicing in the right searches, then it's kind of going to fall flat. So let's go ahead and talk about really quickly your boards. So your boards are really the foundation for your Pinterest account because they are what's going to house your pins. Now, I'm not going to get too in depth into boards here because I do have a video that I published last week that I would love for you to check out, and that's all about optimizing your boards and coming up with titles and descriptions for your boards. But today, we are going to take it a step further by looking a little bit more closely at your pins. So let's go ahead and dive into those pin descriptions. So in case you didn't know, your Pinterest pin descriptions, you can write about 500 characters for those. So I do recommend utilizing all 500 characters if you can. And one thing that will be a prerequisite before you even get to that point where you're ready to write your pin description, I do recommend that you do in-depth keyword research, because then when you are going to even optimize your boards and your pins, that document you have that houses your keywords is going to just help you. So if you're needing to go back and complete that prerequisite step, I do have a video all about SEO on Pinterest, and I do recommend watching that video and working on uncovering those keywords, because like I said, you want to make sure that you're using the right keywords in your content, the keywords that your audience is actually searching for, and then that's going to help you with writing those pin descriptions. So let's go ahead. I really have a formula that I want you to try, and I think it's going to save you a lot of time when you're writing those pin descriptions and figuring out how to use that many characters, how to not keyword stuff. So let's go ahead and dive into that pin description. So the first tip when you are writing your pin description, I want you to include the most important pillar keywords in the first sentence of that pin description. Then tip number 2 for writing that pin description and what should be included in this formula, I do recommend trying to include your brand name. Now, it's okay if you don't include that in every single pin description, but I do think that that is a really good practice. So when you're thinking about that formula, you can kind of create a check system. So have I included the important keywords in the first sentence? Did I include my brand name? And then for part 3 or step 3, while you're writing that pin description, I want you to include enticing details. So what I mean by that is I want you to write in a way where you're giving pinners a little more information about what they would be clicking through to, but you're kind of encouraging them to leave the platform to learn more. And that's really the whole purpose of Pinterest, is obviously to drive traffic. So we want people to first see your pin and to visually capture them in. And then once they click and they enlarge that pin and they see that description, we want to give them more information about why they should click through. Now, is every single person going to be reading the pin description? Probably not, but that's why it's important to make sure you're getting those keywords in for the algorithm and the Pinterest artificial intelligence so they know how to index that content. But then there will be people who do read the pin description. And so that leads right into tip number 4 with this pin description formula. You want to make sure that you're using natural language, because I have seen where a business or a brand will just keyword stuff. And what that looks like is it might even be separated by commas or maybe even bars, but they will just essentially take as many keywords as they can that would be possibly relevant to that pin, and they would just include all of those in the pin description, and that would take up all 500 characters. And that creates a really weird experience. And as a pinner, I have seen people do that, and to me, it appears very spammy. It doesn't look like a person has written it. And as a Pinterest marketer and as a strategist, I think that's a really lazy way to go about including those keywords. So I do not recommend doing that. And like I said, not every single person is going to be writing the pin description, but that's okay. And if you want to make it a little bit faster, then you can use ChatGPT, and that will help. But when you have this Pinterest pin description formula, guess what? You can give ChatGPT this pin description formula, and then they can put out that beautiful pin description for you. Now, I'm also a really big fan of Tailwind. I am a proud affiliate, and I only recommend tools that I use daily and love for myself, my own brand. And so if you want to check out Tailwind, that will be linked in this video, my affiliate link. But I want to share that they also have a tool called the Ghostwriter, and that is also a really great way to write those pin descriptions. Now, I always, no matter what, if I'm using ChatGPT or if I'm using the Ghostwriter tool, I always read that pin description because sometimes it sounds a little funny. And then other times I will notice that rule number 1 for my pin description formula will be broken, and that is the first sentence does not include the most important pillar keywords. So that's why it's important to always proofread those descriptions when you are using that artificial intelligence, because it is artificial intelligence and it's not going to get it right perfectly every single time. But if you have really great prompts, then that can also help you for sure. And for tip number 5, as we wrap up today's episode, this was a quick and short, sweet episode, but for tip number 5, I do want you to include a call to action in your pin description. So I like to essentially tell people exactly what I want them to do next. So as I wrap up my pin description, a lot of times I'll say, go and read more about these Pinterest marketing tips, or go and get this free Pinterest masterclass here on my blog. So I'm telling people essentially, like, you can go and watch this masterclass. When you click through, you are going to be directed to my blog. Or if I'm directing somebody to a product, I will say you can access this workshop here. So I just make it clear that once they click through, essentially what I want them to do and what they're going to be getting. And I find that when you're not ambiguous and you're just telling people exactly what you want them to do, taking that next step or that next action in your funnel, then it creates a better user experience, and it's hopefully going to also decrease the people who are bouncing or clicking through and feeling like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was going to be. So like I said, I just like to be clear about what I want the pinner to do once they leave Pinterest. Okay, so as we wrap this up, let's do a quick summary of what you need to do when you are writing that pin description and a formula that you can use and apply whether you are writing the pin description yourself or giving a prompt to something like ChatGPT or the Ghostwriter tool with Tailwind. Step number 1, I want you to use the most important keywords in the first sentence of your pin description. Now, step number 2, I want you to, and you can do this in some pins, you don't have to do it in every pin, but I want you to try some pins using your brand name. Step number 3, I want you to use enticing language, so get people to want to click through. Step number 4, I want you to use natural language. So write as if somebody's going to be reading the pin description and that you're not just optimizing it for the algorithm. And then step number 5, I want you to use a really great call to action and tell people exactly what you want them to do. So I hope you found this helpful, and make sure that you subscribe to my channel because, like I said, this is actually going to be a 3-part series, and that just shows you how important it is to optimize your pins for Pinterest using those keywords. And there's a lot of other places that you should be using your keywords when you are optimizing those pins, and that's what we are going to get into in the part 2 and part 3. So like I said, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful. Like this video, and I can't wait to see you soon in next week's episode. Bye for now.